Hello, we are in week 5 of the Blessed Conversations, and today we are talking about how do I share the gospel. So we've looked at how do I share my story, how do I talk about Jesus. Today we're talking about how do I share the gospel. And I am with Samuel, Shola and Abigail, and thank you so much for joining me on the sofa. I'm Nicola, by the way, if you don't know, but it's great to have you guys here. Can you briefly introduce yourself, first of all? Samuel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, my name is Samuel Huinka, and then basically, that's it, really.
Let's just hear you out.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear a bit about you in the conversation. Shola.
I'm Shola Oshisonya. Well, people call me Shola, but I'm actually Shola Oshisonya. Nice to meet you, Nicola.
Nice to meet you. And Abigail.
Hi, my name is Abigail Akinla, and I'm a daughter of the Most High King.
I love it. That's great. Thank you so much. And so we're talking about how we share the gospel with those who don't know Jesus. And explain to me briefly, what is the gospel?
Well, for me, the gospel, according to Mark chapter 16, verse 15, where Jesus said to his disciples, go, and share the good news to all creation and throughout the earth. So for me, it's that's the key word, the good news, him being the good news. And that good news can be good news in different ways for everybody.
Great. Thank you.
I completely agree. It's exactly how I would call the gospel. It's the good news. Mm-hmm. To me, it just means that Jesus is here with you. You're no longer alone. You don't have to do things alone. Mm-hmm. And everybody has a past, however terrible or however much better it is. Everyone's got a past, and once you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and your personal Savior, you now have somebody to walk this life with.
So good. Oh, it's encouraging.
It is. Yeah. I totally agree with what Shola and Abigail said. It's all about the good news. Jesus coming as a form of man to restore us back to the Father, which is God himself, coming in the flesh of man. So it's about restoration back to Jesus. At once we were outcast, but now we've been brought back by the grace of God and the death of Jesus Christ and the resurrection. So it's all about the good news. It's all about Jesus. It's all about knowing God and going back to the source of our strength. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good news.
It is,
And it's something that we want to share with people. But how do we take it from like sharing our story, what God's done in our lives, to taking it to sharing the gospel and saying this is not just for me, but this is for everyone. How do we do that?
I have a friend that when we were at uni, when I was finishing uni, she was just starting. So we kind of knew each other at that point. We went to the same church. And in recent years, she was going through some stuff in her life that I have been through. And she knew my story then. And so now I was able to kind of draw her closer and share a bit more details about, those stuffs and how God was able to help me. And then bringing that into her life today to say, this is how, try it this way. And I have seen God work mightily through that. And her experience it's wonderful to see and watch. And it's almost like a carbon copy of what has happened to me. And so it's lovely that she could come to me and learn from that. Yeah. And I am learning from God and asking, what do I say here, or how do I guide her there? And so that's wonderful. So for me, I'm bringing my story to her and saying, that's how God could help in your situation. And if it's not something I've experienced before with some other people, I would just obviously share what I've been through and compare and admit, it might not be the same as yours, but, God can help if you just trust him. And I would just listen to how the Holy Spirit want me to share that and possibly walk with them in their experience.
Yeah, that's so good. That's really good.
I think for me, I usually say that there is nothing new under the sun. So there isn't anything that we've gone through that someone else hasn't gone through. Yeah. I find that in the past, for example, when I was younger and I had an experience about 10 or 11-year-old when I prayed for God to change something around my results in school. It looked like it was a desperate plea at that point, like nothing could change. If you've written an exam, you've seen the result and you're wondering how can the result change. And that happened for me at such a tender age. The feeling it gave me, the hope that I had when I prayed, is the same hope as when I had when I wanted to apply for a mortgage, the first time I wanted to buy a property, and all the stress I went through. And when God came through for me, that same feeling of, fulfillment that God has answered my prayer was the exact same feeling. It was just probably a more matured feeling because I'm now a more matured Christian. So I find that even I can relate to past testimonies to reflect situations that I'm going through today. How much more somebody else. There is nothing that is new. Everyone's gone through some sort of desperation, some hopeless situations, things that have broken them and they thought they could never come out of. It might not be the exact same story, but I find that it's the same feeling behind the story, the same brokenness, the same depression, that depressive state. And I find that when I share my stories, it could be something as little as I almost had a car accident, and that could reflect in someone who's suffering from cancer, for example. It looks like it's different stories, but it's always relatable. So I take passion in the fact that every experience that I've had, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, is a story that could help somebody else. So that's how to take, I would say, the way I would take my story and make it everybody's story is to say it's not exactly what is happening to me that's happening to you, but the same feeling you had, the same way you've cried about this, the same way you soaked your pillow with tears, the same way you've come out with a facade on your face and you can't let people see what you're really feeling because you're holding all this hurt or all this anger or all this hopelessness. It's exactly the same feeling that I've had in certain situations. And even times when I feel that the thing that I've prayed for, that I've been hopeful for, has fallen through, and I've questioned my faith or, questioned my belief, I've seen the glory in the future. Every single time. There's never been a case where you don't see the glory. Even if it's not apparent now, if I ever go through that, I know that in future, that glory is still coming. So just being able to relate that to myself, I relate it to people. So I tell them it's not about the story I'm sharing. It's about the feeling. And when I share how I feel, it's always, every time you have meetings in a room and someone shares a story, you see a lot of people nodding because they can just relate to that background feeling. That's how I make my story their story.
Yeah, connecting with everyone.
That's very, very inspiring, isn't it? To have a story and it's your story to now share to people. I think it takes a bold person, a bold step for someone to come out to say, this is my story and I want to share that. And then even today I met with this wonderful, lovely woman here, very powerful woman of God that is serving in all various departments here at King's. And then, they were going through some stuff and I was able to share the story about my dad who was sick. I remember when this Blessed series first, the second year, which is 2019. And then my dad was really sick. Someone that I look up to is a man of God. He sees vision. He is a general overseer of a few churches in Nigeria. To now see him to the point of can't talk, and when he speaks, he doesn't even know who he's speaking to. He started hallucinating, and then to that point whereby we actually thought that he was gonna die. And I remember 2019, and they called people up for prayer, and then Neil was there, who I refer to as Pastor Neil now. Then I went to him in tears. He was hugging me, and I was holding him tight. I was just crying. I shared what was going on at that moment. And then he was able to he said to me that God is going to do it. Just all you need to do is to believe. God will heal him. Do you believe? I said, I believe. And then all of that, I didn't even let my wife know. Sometimes I'll be in the bathroom after trying to speak to my dad. I won't be able to speak to him. And I'll be in the bathroom just crying, like, how come this man of God? And then everything changed when we prayed at a small group. We had that prayer. Everyone just prayed. I shared that story. Everyone just prayed, and then we prayed concerning that sickness, and everything just changed. She's well and fine now. He can speak to you. He knows Samuel's talking. Call me Demola. It's just, and that is just the beauty of it. And how do I share that? And to people, is about, I know you're going through challenges in life. This is what my parents went through, and it was able to come out of that because of someone prayed, not just because they prayed, because God heard their prayer. And that's it. This all blessed series is all about, is to have people in your blessed list. Just pray for them. It's not you to do the miracle, but to leave everything to the hands of God, for God to take over and take charge of it. And it's still there. The wonders, the power of the powers of Elijah then is still happening today. Sometimes we just don't see that it works, but it works in miracles, and the results will come out. So whatever you're feeling, especially me, sometimes I might be feeling a little bit down, and then I just need something to boost me up. Someone might say something just like what Shola said, like sharing story. And someone might just say something, or listening to music, for example, and that just lifts me up. And that is how it is. It's just to share your story, regardless of how you think it doesn't really make any sense, or it doesn't relate to what people are going. But it's your story, and what you might consider to be just common, that it doesn't even make any sense. Just Shola was saying about, being at work, and then, how was your, you meet the deadline, and you were able to say, it's God. Because it's the center of everything. Jesus Christ, we should make it a center of every conversation, and it's just a bold step that we need to keep going for it.
Making Jesus the center, and he's the center of all our stories. And it is the good news of Jesus that we're sharing that gospel. So we are connecting with people. We're realizing that our stories are connecting. We're sharing the gospel. But how do we then make it to that next step of inviting someone into salvation, to know Jesus? How do we do that? Do you have any experiences of doing that, or ways that you've done that before?
I remember being on the playground at the playground when we had school drop off, and one of my daughter's friends' dad was there, so we were talking, and for some reason I just assumed he was a Christian, but we were just talking. Well, he was a Christian, but not born again or going to church. So then I just chipped in and said, oh, what we were talking about, I knew they needed God's intervention in that. So I said, would you like me to pray with you? And he said, yeah. So right there and then, once the children were there on the, and we prayed, and he accepted. And it was some days or weeks later that I realized,
what you done.
What I'd done. I felt so bad, and I felt, and the wife said, no, I've been praying for things like this, so keep praying, do it, keep doing it. So that for me is just an opportunity to share what I could share, listen to, what this person is saying, and see how I can bring God into that situation.
Yeah, I believe I have to take Jesus with me everywhere. I spend a lot of time working, probably 80% of my waking time. If I'm not working, I'm thinking somewhat about what to do with work. So I've realized that I have to take Jesus to work with me. It's the only way I can share the gospel. And what I've done is I apply various methodologies. If I ever hit a milestone, if I ever do anything at work or achieve anything at work, every time I get a praise, so long as it's not, because I do it with, how do you call it? I try to make sure I do it in the right way. Yeah. I bring it up that it's God who's helped me to achieve that. I'm a child of grace. I don't just go willy-nilly doing things. I commit every single activity that I do in God's hands. So when I do achieve something, it's because of God. So I make that a part of my living, my conversations. Even if I don't say it to people, I'm saying it about myself. So you certainly cannot tell me that it's not God. So that's one of the way I make people know that it's God. You can't tell me that what I've said is wrong. You can disagree, but you won't say it. But I've sown the seed. So that's one of the ways I share the gospel about with, my own personal life.
Yes, I think it takes a courageous faith to be able to share the gospel in this time and in this age, in this world, this broken world that we are at the moment, whereby every single thing is pointing out to there's no God. Everything is pointing out to there's nothing like existence of divine being. And it takes faith and boldness to be able to speak to someone about God. I remember coming to this country and I was like speaking to someone. I was quite really passionate about, I was coming from Nigeria, whereby you see someone in the street with their bell, shouting about Jesus. And I was just about to, my wife was like, take it really easy, take it easy. But I really have an encounter with God's mercy, His grace, His love, His mercy for me from a place whereby I thought everything was over to a place of life, living, having family, beautiful family, having a godly wife, and how miraculously that has happened over the course of a few years for me. And I think Billy Graham said, every single opportunity that you have to preach, take it.
Do it.
Take it. Go for it. And that is just, we are sent to the world to speak the word of God, to preach the gospel, and we need to do it by faith,
Yeah.
Sorry, I talk too much. Sorry.
No, this would be such a good conversation. And it's about being bold. It's about bringing Jesus wherever we are.
Yeah.
And it's about that overflow of just Jesus and what He's done in our lives and connecting with people. And church, I hope that has been really encouraging for you. I definitely feel so encouraged. Thank you so much for being in this conversation. Let's be bold. Let's be full of the excitement and the joy and just what Jesus has done in our lives. And let's bring Jesus and let's bring His gospel and His good news into the lives of others, knowing that we are loved and they need this great gift. Thank you so much again, church. We will be back for our last blessed conversation next week.